Good evening and live from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, the sun and fun capital of the world today. It was beautiful. I'm Dr. John Stamey, and I want to welcome everyone to one of our Christmas editions of Scarycast. It's so good to have everybody here. I've got two tremendous friends of mine, and I am very fortunate that they are both here and that we're all alive and well. I've had some interesting news today, but anyway, I'm glad everyone's here. First of all, a co-host and good friend of mine, and she comes to a number of my conferences to talk, the one and only Jessica Jones. How are you doing tonight, Jessica?
Hey, Dr. Don. I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. I'm on the mend. Had that, little funky health thing going on past couple of days, but I'm okay. I'm excited to be here. I think it's because I've been working too hard and doing too much, and I haven't gotten out in the woods enough lately. That's what's going on.
That's right. You haven't been near Bigfoot enough, so
Right.
that's the problem. All right. Well, we are thrilled to have you here, and tonight our special guest for over the Christmas holidays, one of the greatest researchers and one of the best thinkers in the paranormal world and in the flat earth world, the one and only Mark Sargent. How you doing tonight, Mark?
I am doing well. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure.
Well, good. Thank you for being here. It's wonderful having both of you here. I kind of envisioned this show about 2 weeks ago, and then we, of course, had some problems in getting it to work. And I don't know, sometimes those problems are not necessarily our fault, but we're here, we're clear, we can hear each other, and we're going to have a fun time here on Scarycast. So tonight, I guess the topic and the talk are a little bit different from what I originally thought, because I got a very strange phone call right before this event started. And I will not mention that, but it will come up in the conversation. We're going to talk about Antarctica, and I'll tell you why. Mark Sargent is one of the leading thinkers and doers of the flat earth. Now, my position is this. I don't know what's going on with the earth. I don't know if it's flat, round, or square or whatever, but I know there are some interesting contradictions in every one of the ideas of what the earth is like. Now, Mark Sargent, I'll call on you. Do you agree there are lots of contradictions?
There are a lot of issues, which again got most of the people in my community into flat Earth in the first place. We all thought it was silly. Everybody knows, growing up, we live on a globe. The globe's been in our classroom since we were in first grade. And yet, so it's like, oh, well, it should be easy to prove. And that's how I got into it. I tried to prove it got into it at the summer of 2014. And 9 months later, in the beginning of 2015, I had given up. I said, look, I can't prove it in a court of law anymore. So I'm just going to put it out there. Here's why I think we could live in a snow globe. And thought I would get shot down immediately. And the internet came back and said, nope. It is actually way weirder than that. And so that's where I started 10 years ago.
Well, that's great. And I'll never forget. And then I'm going to go to Jessica. I never forget when I was in the second grade, there was a globe in the back of the room in our classroom.
Yeah.
And what I would do is I would write down the names of the countries and the countries adjacent to them. That's what I guess a fairly pedantic little second grader would do. And I thought it was really cool. And I would take it up to Ms. Garrison, and she'd put a check. She'd say, good work, Johnny. And it occurred to me, the earth couldn't be round. I mean, maybe it is, because we were always taught that there were other planets in the solar system that were round.
Right.
We were told this. We were told that astronomers had seen them, but I'd never seen one. And then I got a I got a telescope in the fourth grade, and I started seeing the round moon. And that's back when we could see. Now I'm going to date myself, and I would like for both of you to comment on this. That's when we had the man in the moon. Now, hey, Jessica Jones, how are you?
Hey,
Okay.
I'm loving this conversation already.
Well, good. That's good. Now, do you remember the man in the moon?
I've heard of the man in the moon. Yes.
And the man in the moon, you could look up at a full moon, and the dude had a big nose.
Mhm.
And you could see an eye and a big nose and kind of a mouth. Now, Mark Sargent, I'm going to ask you, do you remember the vision of the man in the moon?
I do, but it's been a while. You know, I'm a big media buff. I absorb all media that I can, and the older movies, in fact, the really early movies of moon exploration, long before NASA was founded in 1959, used the man in the moon. There's a famous one from back in the day during the silent movie era where the rocket plowed into the moon and it poked in the eye of the man in the moon. You know,
Are you talking about 1908, the man in the moon? Yes, that was 1908, and that was kind of a takeoff on a Jules Verne thing.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah, it was a cool image. I have not seen any modern versions of that even hinting to the face on the moon anymore. It's weird that you would bring that up.
But then I think the most famous one of all, the most famous man in the moon, comes from It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh.
Donna Reed played Jimmy Stewart's girlfriend.
Right.
And she had how he hung the moon. And there's a picture of a man superimposed on the moon.
Yeah.
Now, and I didn't think anything about that the first time I saw it, because we used to go outside and see the image of a man, of a face on the moon.
Right.
But now we don't. We see it's very plain.
Yeah.
And it's different, and it's gone.
Yeah.
And I don't think, for some reason, I don't think we can find a picture or an image of the man on the moon or the man in the moon.
Right.
Now, REM, the very famous pop rock group from Athens, Georgia, they have a song called If You'd Believe in a Man in the Moon. And they remembered that. Now, they're older like me, like you, Mark. They're not, Jessica's a beautiful lady, and she's not old like we are.
Right behind you. I'm right behind you.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, I have to correct you because I'm a media guy. The RAM song, and it actually doesn't hurt your argument, was If You Believe We Put a Man on the Moon, which was a play on, okay, really the Americans went to the moon, really? I'm a huge believer that REM kind of knew that the American space program was not as advertised.
I certainly believe that Stanley Kubrick went on the moon.
Yes.
I certainly believe that the greatest director in history,
yeah,
no one but Stanley Kubrick could have created that legend of the man in the moon. But yes, the man in the moon is something. And my father, you see, I had a really great dad, and he taught me about science. If I can just digress a minute, he came home one day. It was like, I think it was right around the 22nd of December. And I said, Dad, are you okay? He said, yes, son. I want us to talk a little bit. I said, well, okay. Well, I was like, 4 or 5 years old. He said, son, do you notice that the sun is going down? And he showed me his watch. And I knew how to tell time. He said, what time is it? I said, it's 4:30. He said, do you notice the sun is going down? I said, yes. He said, okay. And he just went on in the house. And so then that summer, I think maybe I was 5. And he said, son, I know you're asleep, but I've talked with your mother, and she's okay with you to throw on your clothes, and I want you to come outside with me. It was like 9:40 at night. I said, sure, Dad. What's up? He said, let me show you something. He said, all right, what time is it? I said, it's about 9:45. What's the sun doing? I said, it's just going down. Oh, my goodness. But back in December, it was going down at 4:30 in the afternoon. He said, that's right. Because what I'm teaching you is that during the summer, it takes longer for the sun to go through the horizons than it does in the winter. I said, wow, that's really cool. He said, so we've learned a little bit about science. He was always interested in the space program. And then we had a moment. He and I had a moment that was just kind of strange. I'm really dating myself. I think I was 8 years old. And we were watching Neil Armstrong communicate with Mission Control in Houston. And Neil Armstrong would talk and they would respond. He would talk and they would respond. I said, well, Daddy, I mean, we've heard that the moon is 250,000 miles away. Now, how can they be talking? And I knew the phrase real time. How can they be talking in real time when the moon's 250,000 miles away? That should take more time for those radio waves to get back to us. And he turned around, looked at me. He said, son, I have no idea. I never thought about that. He was a radio control operator in World War II. And I was just a pedantic little smart jerk back when I was a kid. But I said, how is that happening? And he looked at me, he said, son, I don't know. And that was the end of that. He said, well, I don't know. Let's just keep watching it.
Yeah.
So the whole point is there have been anomalies about communication. And one is, how fast do radio waves go? Now, it's real funny. Somebody said, oh, it only takes 7 seconds. Well, it's okay. Well, there's fewer than 7 seconds going back and forth in these conversations. So I didn't take that. I didn't believe that. I don't believe anything. I sit and I smile and I nod my head, but I know what I believe. So anyway, there are strange things. There are anomalies. Now, Jessica Jones, did you ever have a moment when you kind of didn't know what was going on with things like that?
Well, I had a fascination with outer space and UFOs as a kid, and which later led me into what I do today. And Mark may have no idea. I'm a Bigfoot field researcher. Okay. And I go out and do cryptid field research. I've been doing it for well over a decade, since 2011. And it's kind of my life now.
Nice.
Just doing Bigfoot and field research and stuff. But I'm also highly trained in remote viewing, the type that our military does.
Right.
And my entire team of cryptid researchers were all trained in that. And in the first time, I mean, I've always seen anomalies, John. Okay, I've always seen anomalies. But okay, well, I got to say the UN flag was the first one when I thought about the flat Earth theory. I didn't think the flat Earth theory could ever be true until I saw that flag and I realized what it was. But I was seeing these anomalies when it came to outer space and the moon, when I was tasked with something that I was told to never do. Okay, I was told to never remote view the moon, and if you do, don't talk about it. Okay, you don't talk about it. It's completely off limits. You do not remote view the moon. And I was actually trained by a person who might have had some military training, let's just say. Okay, not to get into details. I don't know the details. Okay, but it was, I'm trained in like the Ingo Swann methods of remote viewing, and he's remote viewed the moon, and he's written a book about it called Penetration. Okay, and I was actually tasked with a remote viewing target of the Apollo 11 moon landing. And I was set to I have a YouTube channel, and I was going to do a show on it. And I knew that I wasn't supposed to remote view the moon and talk about it. But I just had gotten too comfortable in everything I was doing. I was real comfortable. And I decided, and I got some weird data on it. Some really strange, these are blind targets. I don't know what they are. When I found out what it was, I was like, oh, we're going to go ahead and we'll talk about it live on air. And about 2 hours before my show, I had the proverbial knock at my door. I was told to keep my mouth shut about it. And I kind of got, I wasn't like threatened or anything like that. I took it as a courtesy, actually, because I was told that there were people watching, and I needed to really be careful what I did and what I said. And I went on with that show and I talked about it, but I did not disclose all the data, because remote viewing is all about data. But it was very odd. Okay. And it was the Apollo 11 moon landing. I do remote viewing targets all the time. I remote viewed even the missing people out of our national parks, those clusters. I've remote viewed suspected cryptid attacks. I've remote viewed all sorts of stuff, and I've never had that proverbial knock at my door. The only time, I've been doing this for years, the only time was the Apollo 11 moon landing. And so I just wanted to stress that tonight. I think that that's important. And I think it speaks volumes without really saying anything. So there's anomalies there for sure.
Okay. That is interesting. Mark Sargent, do you have any comments regarding what Jessica Jones just told us?
Oh, no, I'm intrigued as hell. That's awesome. I don't get a chance to talk to a lot of remote viewers. I have talked to a few over the years. Most of them, been earthbound, of course. Didn't even occur to me that the moon might be off limits, but knowing what I know, yeah, of course it would be, because the Americans, one of the most suspicious things of all is that, did the Americans go to the moon? Because no one else has even tried. And the Americans supposedly went 6 times without a problem, then shut the whole thing down in 1972 and said, we don't need to go anymore.
Let's just stop this.
Yeah.
There's no, and I'll make a joke. There seems to be no Century 21 flag
right
on the moon.
Right. We should have been, and the space race ended also simultaneously. I've never seen so much hype to end with nothing, which was, people forget there was a term called cosmonauts, which was the Americans had astronauts and the Soviet Union had cosmonauts. And it was this neck and neck race. You can go on Google anytime and type in the space race and click on images. You'll see Time magazine, Russia and America head and head. I've never seen anything where one side gets there and the other side just walks off the field, where, the Americans got there and the Russians like, well, we don't need to do anything more. Just shut it all down. It's like, what? How? Why? Well, it should have been, we put a small base, they put a bigger base. And then the next thing you know, Time magazine runs a story, says, has the Cold War reached the moon? But I know why it didn't happen, which was you cannot, and this same thing with Hollywood, you cannot have 2 different studios in 2 different places of the world run the exact same production and hope that there's, the continuity will be perfect. It never happens. We can't even get a studio to do it on their own. That's why you can go to places like moviemistakes.com, because movies, for those of you who don't know, are shot chronologically out of order. Right, you shoot all the desert scenes in 1 week. You shoot all the, all the scenes in chunks to save money. And then if you have to go back and do reshoots, you have to make sure that everything's perfect like it was. It's never perfect. So the Russians were asked politely to. It's like, yeah, we got this. We got the money. We got private industry. We can run films all day. We can handle this. And the Russians just backed down. And that was it. It was intriguing. Just people don't talk about it. I just love it. The space race is just a forgotten thing now.
You are correct. The space race is no longer.
Right.
And Jessica, do you remember the space race? Because you're, Mark and I are a bit older.
She's not even remotely old enough.
I'm just a few years younger than you guys. Okay. And it was a little before my time, but I know exactly what it is. Of course I do. And I don't know, there's just so many anomalies, but even to this day, I work with people doing research and stuff with people who claim to be part of the secret space programs that we have today. Right. And these black budget programs and stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of anomalies going on, a lot of stuff we don't all understand. But it's almost like I don't know if it's okay. I guess I can say this on air, like psyops on top of psyops on top of psyops.
Yeah.
Okay. That is all I can say. It's like just a big old tangled web of psyops. And I don't even think that we know the truth about a lot of any of this stuff. I mean, it could be right in front of our faces, but
Right.
just too many psyops.
Well, okay. I want to jump from your comment there to tonight's topic, which is Antarctica.
Right.
Truly one of the most remote places on Earth. And I have always been interested in Antarctica. There are so many legends from the Germans in World War II to pyramids to all kinds of stuff. I mean, I just love the legend and the lore of Antarctica. And I would like to start tonight's discussion with a very strange story, if I may. It used to be before the internet that the single most valuable knowledge resource was the Encyclopedia Britannica. Mark, do you remember the Britannica?
Absolutely. Had to set myself.
Yes. Now, Jessica, do you remember how the Encyclopedia Britannica, that was the goal, that was the greatest resource of knowledge in the world? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I have sets of those that belong to my grandfather, and I actually was awarded I was awarded a set when I was in elementary school for winning the countywide storytelling contest. Okay, so yes, I know
great.
what they are. I had them.
Right.
I
Of
love
course.
that, by the way. A storytelling contest. That's
Yes.
beautiful. I love that.
Yes.
That's
I was a
great.
performer
Well,
back then.
I'll tell you what, the Britannica is the gold seal of knowledge. And I have a page out of the 1958 Encyclopedia Britannica, which talks about Antarctica. And it talks about the firmament. Now, the firmament, for those that do not know, is the idea that there is a cap over the earth. And it says, in one version, it says the firmament is 13,000 feet. And in one version of the Encyclopedia Britannica, it says that the firmament is 303,000 feet above the earth, but that there is a firmament. There is a cap over the earth. And when I saw this, and a very good friend of mine, who is the number 2 guy of MUFON in Alabama, great guy, I won't mention his name, but he sent me a copy of that particular page. And it is just chilling that it says there is a firmament. There is a top to the entire world. Okay? That's 1958. The next printing of Encyclopedia Britannica was 1961. Now, what happened between 1958 and 1961? In July 1st of 1958 through December 31st of 1959, that was the International Geophysical Year. Very important thing that happened. That's when 130 some countries went down to Antarctica and explored Antarctica. Well, in the 1961 edition of Encyclopedia Britannica, the idea of the firmament is gone. It's gone. Absolutely. It's gone. It's a whole new article. Now, my question is, what in the hell, pardon my grammar, what in the hell happened to change all of this between 1958 and 1961? In 58, we were in the middle of the space race. What did they find out that changed the Encyclopedia Britannica? What happened? So that starts our conversation for tonight, because that is the single most amazing thing in the world, that the world view of Antarctica and the ceiling above the earth changed. Now, there is also a statement made by Dr. Van Allen. And Dr. Van Allen said, well, we've got a problem with space, with the space race and going up there, because we have this radiation belt. And everybody said, and they were at the United Nations when he talked about it. They said, well, what are you talking about? Well, the radiation is so high that astronauts cannot get through the radiation belt to get out of the atmosphere. So what he talked about was the Van Allen radiation belt, the one thing that seems to be impenetrable. And it's like, and I always like give this example. Mark, you've heard me say this, and maybe Jessica, you have too. It's like you've got a 1957 Cadillac, and you've got aluminum foil. You're wrapped in a suit of aluminum foil. And you're trying to go through all this radiation without dying. You can't do that. I will leave it at that. The first person I will ask to comment on this story is the great remote viewer, Jessica Jones. What do you have to say about this?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've never remote viewed this. Okay. I've never remote viewed it. So I'm not an expert. I don't know. I'm not an expert on anything, by the way. But I find there's a lot of anomalies in all of this for sure. And I mean, I literally feel like I've been radiated like in a microwave. On Saturday night, I felt like I got microwaved. I really did down here. And I know how dangerous radiation is. You know, we encounter a lot of radiation out in the field when we're doing our Bigfoot field research. I have 2 teammates who unfortunately have passed away. We believe that them encountering what we consider to be a portal that we've documented out in the field at some point might have led to them getting very sick and both of them passing away. It was the radiate, you know, we had spikes in radiation a lot when we're out there having like supernatural paranormal stuff happening out there. Radiation is, you're not going to make it through that radiation. Like, you're not going to survive that. So I don't know. So the way, the methods of like how we've been shown, how humans have been put into space and stuff. I don't know if they can go through that in a rocket ship. Okay. I just don't think I'm not sure that's possible. If they're going to outer space, if there's an outer space here and it's in, even if I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I would assume that they're going not in rocket ships. They'd be going through portals and rips in space and time and stuff. There's like devices, but I don't know. Okay. I don't know. I have done remote viewing on that kind of stuff, actually. On Earth's weaponized portals, I've been assigned as a target before. Jump gates, I've in jump rooms and things like that to different places I've been assigned as remote viewing targets. But never the Earth, the firmament, stuff like that. I haven't been remote. That's not been a target for me yet.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Now, Mark Sargent,
Yes.
one of my real experts on things like this.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about the idea that the firmament was a thing in 1958, and then it was out of the Encyclopedia Britannica in 1961, and also all the associated ideas? What do you think? Because you're definitely someone who has thought about the flat Earth and
Right.
what is going on with it. Please tell us.
I don't believe in coincidences. I never have. The closest thing to a coincidence, George Carlin, of course, said that no, he was talking about something else. But coincidence for me would be running into a friend of yours at the airport, not knowing they were going to be flying somewhere. It's like, oh wow, you're getting on a flight too. That's about it. Everything else, I think, is part of the plan. And between Antarctica and what I call the firmament, the top of the snow globe, everything changed in the late 1950s into the 1960s, meaning there was a particular year which stands out. And one of our late researchers, Rob Skiba, was really funny to point it out, in that it's awfully interesting that the Antarctic Treaty, which was initially put into place in 1959, which says that no corporation from any country can set up shop there ever, right? And won't even be up for review until 2041. It's the only unbroken treaty in the history of treaties. Is also announced in the same year, 1959, that the Van Allen radiation belts are declared, which was Van Allen said that, oh yeah, you probably should never, ever go up there. It's super deadly. And then Kennedy, of course, pushed forward and screwed the whole thing up in 1960, we choose to go to the moon this decade and do the other thing, that famous speech. And they had to go back to Van Allen, and the media was like, all right, how are you going to do it? And he's going, well, we're going to go real fast. And which is a nice idea in theory, but you've already said that the belts are up to 60,000 miles thick, right? It's like a donut around the world. And on top of that, as Jessica was saying, like radiation is super deadly. No one would ever argue that. Try to go into a dentist chair, and when they're going to take an x-ray of you, which is just a fraction of a second, they put that lead blanket on you, right? Try to see if you can get away with that without the lead blanket. They're not going to let you, right? There's only 3 things out there that can stop radiation right now. One is lead, right? Cheap. One is gold, which is twice as dense as lead, but super, super expensive, especially now. So no one's using that. And a whole bunch of water, which they use in power plants, atomic reactors, that sort of thing. And all those things are really, really heavy. Well, if you know anyone in aerodynamics, anyone that has to do with engineering of aircraft or spacecraft, that's the last thing you do. You don't put an anchor on the top of a rocket or the nose of a plane. Aircraft and all spacecraft, they're made out of aluminum and plastic. And yet, knowing this, right, they supposedly went through the Van Allen belts and went through multiple times. The Americans went, 6 round trips there and back. And nobody died. Nobody got radiation poisoning. Nobody even got cancer. I think as of today, 2020, end of 2024, I think there's like 4 of these guys still walking around, right? The original guys. They all died of natural causes. How did that happen? No one wants to talk about it. It's fascinating to me. No one wants to talk about the fact that the American space program went without shielding still to this day. In fact, if you think, sorry, one more thing. I know I go off on tangents, but there's a wonderful little video. You can look it up. It's called Orion Trial by Fire. Orion, of course, is the Mars program, the American Mars program, which is not going anywhere. You can go on YouTube, type in Orion Trial by Fire. There's a wonderful little video talking about how they can't even test capsules for the Orion program because they haven't solved the radiation problem. And this video was made in 2014. And it's like, what do you mean you haven't solved the radiation problem? You solved it. You solved it perfectly in the 1960s. In fact, it was flawless. No one even got remotely injured. What happened? And again, NASA has huge continuity errors. They make production errors all the time. But the general public, because they're so hopeful, and our education system, especially in America, sorry, one more thing, especially in America, we don't teach anything about mathematics, and we don't teach anything about physics. And so when people get out of high school, it's like, honestly, it's almost like, well, as long as we can get them, they can drive a car. Forget about the rest of the stuff. They're going to forget the rest of that stuff anyway. What blew my mind was when I was doing speaking stuff in other countries, and I was saying, hey, you people in, I don't know, Stockholm, Sweden, right? Big room of people. Why do you think the Americans went to the moon, right? It's like, I know why we think, all the people in this room right here, why we think it's, rah, rah, wave flag, go team. It's a matter of national pride. Why do people outside this country? And they all tell me the same thing. They say, well, it was on television. And your news would never lie about something like that.
Oh,
and I smile at him and I go, really? Then you don't know us at all. I go, we're that good that you don't even think that the American media would lie to you. It's like, come on, give me a break. Anyway, sorry, it's my little tangent.
Well,
That's okay.
I kind of question why all of the astronauts who were a part of the Apollo 11 moon landing have Hollywood stars on the Walk of Fame.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, they're and one more thing, which is I feel bad because all the Apollo astronauts ended up being recluses. You know, they dove into bottles of whiskey, and they rarely made public appearances. And I think guilt is really weighs on you when you're not expecting credit and accolades for things you haven't done. Imagine being in a parade down the main streets in New York for something you didn't do, and then cutting ribbons at elementary schools with your name on it, and that goes on for years, right? I mean, yeah, of course, you want to believe in the lie and you want to do your part for your country. And honestly, I don't even blame America for doing this. Of course, there was an ulterior motive, but the motivation was really high. You got to remember, after World War II, we were the shining beacon on the hill. We were legendary, and it was a good move, which was, oh, hey, why, something that Caesar didn't even do during the Roman Empire, which is like, hey, let's say we went to the moon. Did we go to the moon? Are we going? No, it doesn't matter. They're going to believe it. So we did, but it just didn't age well, unfortunately. The pictures aged horribly. The video aged really, really badly. And the internet, which I think was anticipated to some degree, all it takes is a nerd in his underwear in Nebraska at 3 a.m. one night. It's like, hey, staring at the screen going, that doesn't look right. And if you think all it takes is one, it takes more than one guy. I'll give you one more thing really quick. One of the things I like to point out, which was the original Lord of the Rings movie, right? Made it all the way to the theaters. And in the first release in the theaters, when the hobbits are leaving the Shire, there's a road with a white car driving off in the upper right-hand corner. And nobody caught it. You know how many thousands of people probably watched the rough cuts of that film? Everyone's staring at the hobbits. No one's staring up in that corner. And then all of a sudden, you go to the theater, there's some guy munching his popcorn, drops something. His head goes up, looking in the wrong direction. He's like, that shouldn't be there. So yeah, it's tough. So last thing along those lines, when people come to me and they say, could you fake the moon landing? I go, you could back a dump truck with $1 trillion up to me. I go, get that truck out of here, because all it takes is your weakest link to screw it up. And then because of the internet, it's out there forever. Unfortunately, because of how fast things travel through the internet, you couldn't make a mistake and try to bury it completely. There's going to be copies out there, which is why everyone records everything. Anyway,
can I just say something really quickly too, because
absolutely,
I think
Jessica, this
is really interesting. And I did a show not too long ago on the Challenger explosion as well.
Sure.
And some people, there's evidence of those astronauts actually being alive today.
Yeah, it was
true.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, didn't want to cut you off real quick, but it was my circles that, in fact, one of our guys went to one of their houses just a couple of years ago and was trying to grill this guy. And sorry, I got to get this out really fast, which was when they got up to him, what killed me was, it's like, yeah, I've heard this, but, he'd say things like, yeah, I've looked like this guy my entire life. It's like, wow, that's pretty interesting, because you're not twins. But what killed me was he never gave the alibi. Everybody knows if you're being accused of something, you should immediately jump to, no, I wasn't there in the bank robbing the place. I was over here doing this. He should have said, hey, in 1986, because that's the one you're talking about, right? In 1986, I was doing blah, blah, blah in a completely different part of the country. He never said it. He never figured. Sorry. Anyway, didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you didn't cut me off. I can't help but think about that incident, because that really shaped my life. I was in elementary school when that happened. And I do believe I stayed home from school that day for some reason. And my sister was there. She was younger than me. 1986. I would have been almost 10. Okay. That's how old I am. Yeah. And so I remember that happening. And that was the first time I ever saw anyone die in real time.
Right.
And I knew that, I was told that those people had all died. And it really changed my view on life in general. And it was really wild, because they actually had all the children at all the schools watching that, because the teacher was on board. And so it was just extremely traumatizing for all the children in America.
Yeah.
Okay? All the children. That was a horrible, if that was a, let's just say, psyop, let's just say something that was used to control the masses in some way, that's really dirty. Okay. That's really dirty. And RIP, God rest their souls, if that was not a psyop, that really happened. According to what I remember, it did happen. But now I'm seeing evidence that it might not. I think something exploded, but I'm not sure those people really died.
Exactly. It blew up.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was a big fireworks show
Yes.
no question. And it was brilliant in that, I mean, yes, it's mean to tell people that somebody died if they didn't die, of course.
Mhm.
I mean, come on, it's not the first time that it happens, but at the same time, you slow down the space program again. You know, that's one of the big keys here is slow everything down. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. And now, of course, the space shuttle program, a lot of people don't know, it's not even there anymore. We don't even use it. It's like it was never replaced in anything. What was amazing was when the internet started ramping up, people started comparing photos, and now, of course, you can do face recognition searches. And we were doing this stuff even beforehand, and they found that there were duplicate people. You've seen this stuff yourself, where there's duplicate people in positions of either corporate leadership or university teaching leaderships with the exact same name or using their middle names. They look very, very similar, and their facial structure. That's the key. These people weren't, really, they didn't have ordinary faces. And Hollywood, when you try to age faces, they've never gotten it right. We have a hard time. We're actually better at turning people younger in Hollywood than older. And these people, when you start comparing them to the older versions that are supposedly walking around, it's like, yeah, that's exactly what their facial structure would look like. It's like, yeah, that's what they'd look like during their 40th high school reunion. No question.
Yeah.
And
I had people get upset over my show, and they were saying, well, they have twins. They have twins. How would you like it if you got accused? Those are you have children. Your children know that, that their children know that their parents died and that and stuff. And it was almost as polarizing as the Flat Earth show that I did. Okay. Flat Earth is the most polarizing topic that I have ever covered in all of my days.
And why, by the way? And I have
That's
seen
a good question.
Yeah, and I know, but I mean, you could be talking about blue team, Democrat versus Republican, abortion versus not abortion, which is the one true religion, and it's still not going to generate the level of vitriol, the level of teeth gnashing that Flat Earth does, and that is simply because of the conditioning that we all get when we're in school, like John was saying, where we see the globe in the classroom. It's brilliant, right? It's the only thing we debunk to children. It's like, the teacher might not even mention it. Sometimes we used to think it's flat. Now, spin, spin, spin. Look, we got this globe. And then they put it in the corner under the American flag, usually. And you never talk about it again. Kids can grab it whenever they want. They spin it. They're not encouraged. It doesn't make any difference. It's just sitting in your classroom for at least 12 years. And I try to equate it to, think about this. The American flag also in your classroom in most places, right? Sitting up there. There are people that join the military partially because the flag's been in their room for 12 years, right? It's like, that's my flag. That's where I live. I'm going to join up and try to defend it, right? Oh, hey, look what's that below it. That's the globe. That's where I live. I'm willing to defend it and ridicule other people. Why? There's no reason. It's just burned into your head. Sorry, one more I'll throw at you. John knows this, but you may not. It's a quote I put in every video that I do in the description box, and that is George Orwell, 1984. He wrote this interesting thing back in 1946. He was talking. He's not a flat earther, but he was talking about how people believe not just questions in people in authority, but scientists. So if you are perceived smarter, if you're wearing a lab coat, usually it's just a lab coat, then you're smarter than me, right? And you're going to believe what he says. And he's talking about how science just gets away with murder because people just believe what science says. And so he goes, if you walk out on the street and you ask people how they know it's a globe, they just laugh at you and they say, "What are you talking about? It's a known thing. It's a globe." And then you push them on it, right? And you say, "How do you know?" And then the gears start grinding because then all of a sudden they realize it's not that they know. They've never seen it. They don't have a spaceship, flying car. It was that they were told. Even more interesting was he wrote that in 1946. NASA wasn't even founded until 1958. How did everybody in the world know in 1946 there was a globe, but there was no space program? They were told. And they, the group think, the herd mentality, that person's father and that person's father going up the family tree. It's not, so I don't feel bad. People is like, oh, they're hard on themselves. I can't believe I fell for it. It's like, you were born into it. You had no choice. It was like, were you going to go against the grain? Come on. The peer pressure is the most powerful social motivator we have. Anyway.
Very well put, Mark. Very well put.
Thank you.
I was a victim of it when I was in the second grade in Mrs. Garrison's class. And by the way, it was in the back of the room, and guess what was above it? The American flag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very, very well put.
Thanks.
And as Jessica said a little earlier one time, I hope I'm not going to get a knock on my door. But it's just.
Well,
so,
I want.
so-
Are we going to be allowed to talk? Are you guys going to talk about the what we were talking about just before the show about the looking at Antarctica?
Yes, we are. We're just now getting to it.
Okay.
Because
By the way, again, I love this whole part because I've never heard it before. I've never heard of something like this. It reminds me of your moon thing you were telling me about, but I want to hear it.
Okay. Well, then at that point, we will move forward with part 2 of Antarctica. All right. What is Antarctica? It's like I gotta come up with a way to segue. What is Antarctica, Jessica?
It's a continent. It's a mysterious continent down on, and I say it's mysterious because not a lot of people are allowed to go there, right? But it's down at the South Pole. It's a very large continent. We're told it's all ice. That's what we're told. I don't know. I've seen some anomalies with that too. It might not be all ice, but they say that back, I'm going to say during Schmittler, we say Schmittler, okay, on YouTube. Let's say, is it the Third Reich? I guess I don't know if he's third or fourth. I guess it's third. Went down there and put some bases down there. Allegedly, there are some ancient civilizations that lived, that prospered and lived there, probably millions of years ago, for all I know. But the schmutzies, as I like to call them, went down there and put some bases. It's only because of my YouTube channel, that's why I say those things.
I got you.
You know how it goes. Censorship and all.
Yeah.
So they went down and put some secret bases down there, UFO bases and stuff, is what some people say. I believe that could be true. I just had a friend of mine named Brad Olson on my show, who's actually been to Antarctica at least once, maybe twice. He's been down there and did a whole lot of research down there and spent a lot of time down there. We talked about it. Things like the pyramids had been found down there, secret programs and things like that. And like Mark was mentioning earlier, there's an Antarctica treaty that was signed. I forgot what year it was, but
initially 1959. But every country that comes online as an economic power immediately has to sign it.
I think it was actually 1960 because the end of the International Geophysical Year is December 31st, 59. So I think it was like in the first part of 60. Okay. And that's what I think is they all signed it. So, not trying to usurp what you're saying, but I think that's what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, Jessica. So you've told us what you think Antarctica is. Mark, what is Antarctica?
If you believe mainstream, Antarctica is a snowy continent, a little bigger than Australia, that supposedly sits at the bottom of the world, even though it is unusual in so many ways. One, it's the most expensive place to go in the world. I think it's pushing 35 grand American a person. I know this because we just sent 3 people down there recently just to look at the sun, which was silly. It is also the highest continent in the world. The average height of the entire continent is pushing 14,000 feet, which is way, way higher than the average of anywhere else. Remember, altitude kicks in at about 7,000 feet, half that. And what was the other thing about it that caught my eye? There's no animal life except for penguins on the coast, no plant life, no remnants supposedly of population. There's only supposedly like 5,000 people at any given time, either military or military scientists, but we know there's bases down there. One, because of an accident. There's a video on my channel about it. If you guys know what Fitbit is, those wristwatches that measure your exercise activity. A few years in, when Fitbit was firing up, they were using as a selling point, you could see where other people were exercising in different parts in your city and town and state and whatever. The problem was that military people were wearing this, and they were basically just tiny little GPS systems. And so you could go online and you could see where people, oh, look, there's a military base next to my house, and these people are exercising, they're doing whatever. But the thing was, they were showing bases that weren't on the maps, including bases in the middle of the deserts in America, with no roads going to them, which was interesting. And of course, places in Antarctica where the people were exercising in the middle of areas that there was supposedly nothing there. So yeah, the Antarctica is, and sorry, one last thing, which is Antarctica is going to be forever a mystery to me, because the UN flag, it's not on there. It shows all the continents, but it doesn't show Antarctica. And instead of Antarctica, it's like, okay, first off, why'd you leave off an entire continent on the UN flag? But instead of Antarctica, there is this Greco-Roman reef giant that surrounds the world. That's super interesting, since we think it's that Antarctica stretches around the world, and it's basically just the inside of a snow globe. Or as Shakespeare used to say, all the world's a stage. There you go. The end.
Okay. Now my data makes sense then, because I was trying to figure out why I was assigned a remote viewing target of the ice wall.
Sure.
And I literally wrote down Antarctica in my data. So that's wild. So the ice wall is Antarctica, right?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about? Okay. Interesting. Okay. Wow.
All right. So Jessica, why do you say this is interesting? I'd like a little follow-up on this.
I actually, so when I talked about the ice wall, I don't know a lot about any of this. I don't know hardly anything about any of this. I know that I've talked about Antarctica quite a bit with people who've actually been to Antarctica that know a lot more about it than I do. I did a show a while back on flat Earth, and I did not state my opinion either way as to what I believe. Okay, and neither did my guest. We didn't. We were just putting it all out there with different theories and showing different types of maps and things like that. And it was a wonderful, informative show. I really enjoyed it. I loved learning about it. I've always been in the globe camp, but I'm always open to things, to learning new things and changing my mind. Now, at this point, honestly, I'm such an open-minded person. I mean, I think we could live in some kind of simulation. We don't live on anything. I live in an alternate reality most of the time anyways, parallel universe from everybody else. But nonetheless, we did a show on that, and that was the first time I learned about an ice wall. I never heard about the ice wall, but I thought the ice wall was separate from Antarctica. I thought that was something different.
Well, it depends who you talk to. So initially, the coastline of Antarctica, because remember, there's a lot of ice on Antarctica, huge amounts. If you're traveling by boat, the first thing you're going to see when you pull up to Antarctica is the ice, and it starts, at sea level, and it goes up at least the coastline in most of the areas is like a couple 100 feet, to where the boats that park alongside it have to use cranes, unless you found a beachhead somewhere, with actual rock. You have to have cranes lift your stuff up onto the ice, higher than your ship. However, that would be the physical coastline of Antarctica. That's what, when you see pictures of people say, oh, the ice wall, that's what it is. However, Antarctica as a continent acts like a big ice barrier that keeps all the water in. Right. So if this is a pond, why doesn't water fall out of a pond? Well, because it's surrounded by higher land all the way around. People don't get it. It's like, look, Antarctica is 14,000 feet minimum. When you get up to, it slopes up and it goes to 14,000 feet, and most of it sits at 14,000 feet, which would be the perfect barrier for any water. It doesn't matter how much sloshing around. You could have a huge tsunami. It's not going to make a dent down in Antarctica. So when they talk about the ice wall, there's the visible one you see in pictures, but that's really just the coastline of Antarctica. Antarctica as a continent is the ice wall.
Okay. Well, that makes all the sense. My data makes sense now, because my target was 100% just the ice wall. And
Right.
So I'm remote viewing whatever the ice wall is. And I literally wrote down landmass, what I was seeing. And these are like coordinate targets. Okay. So I'm giving coordinates. I wrote down continent. Do you want to talk about the data, John? Are we kind of going there?
No, I have not. That is your domain.
Okay. All right. Well, I was tasked with this remote viewing target of the ice wall. And I will go over some of my sensory data. So I may need to explain what remote viewing is to people who are listening right
Please
now.
do. Please do.
And so I do something. There are a lot of people who say they do remote viewing, and I've learned that not everybody does remote viewing like I do remote viewing, because I'm not just psychically looking into something. I have actually been trained for years in different modes of energetic remote viewing, enhanced remote viewing, coordinate remote viewing, all these different types of remote viewing that our military uses. And so it is a scientific process where I map out, given a set of, it's usually blind coordinates. Okay, I get a set of numbers, and I write those numbers down, and I go through. I have stacks of paper, and I have stages that I start writing all this data down. When I write down those coordinates, all this information, we call it data, starts flooding in. I start getting sensory data, and I started doing like analytic overlay information, and I go page after page with this data. I'm just given these targets, okay?
Okay.
And so that's what remote viewing is. Okay, this is what I did with this this is a coordinate remote viewing target. The target was the ice wall. Okay. Now I was picking up on something huge. Okay, when I got into this target, it was cold, massive. I actually was seeing blues, like I write down colors or anything that I'm sensing. It was definitely cold. It was in a very cold place. I was picking up on freezing temperature, something that was just massive and cold, and I kept getting it like hidden and hiding types of data on this. Well, for my analytic overlay, I did pick up on something that was like a big landmass. I was picking up on sound frequencies and tones. I wrote down a continent. Okay, so the ice wall, I was like, I don't think the ice wall is a continent when I got this target. But I picked up on, I wrote down optics. These are the things I wrote down. Optics, optical illusion, congruent, landmass, tone, sound frequency, continent, continental shelf, hidden truth, hidden history, valid, validate, Antarctica, something I wrote down, Bermuda Triangle, something I also wrote down. I wrote Bermuda Triangle. And for my stage 3 sketch, I actually drew what looks like a pyramid. Okay, so it's like something triangular. That's just me. You know, I always draw a sketch with every target. Okay, and I picked up on a pyramid or pyramids, and something that was triangular, very dense and thick. I was picking up on advanced race. I wrote advanced races, advanced civilizations, secrets. I just wrote secrets. Cover up. I wrote down Argatha or Agatha. I wrote Argatha. I wrote how did I spell it? I spelled it wrong. I must have. What? No, it says Argatha. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. So I was definitely there in that area, but I heard clairaudiently while I was remote viewing, not a psyop. Not a psyop. That's why I'd mentioned that when I don't know if we were live on the show. I think it was before we went live. I said, it sounds like this place is like a psyop. There's like, it's not a psyop, but there's psyops on top of psyops. So like, it just keeps everybody so confused. Right. And that is exactly what I got in this target. It's like, that's why I said that, because it seems as though it's not, I don't think the flat earth thing is a psyop, but there's so many things that are thrown at us that everything's a psyop on top of a psyop. So how are we to ever know, you know? So,
right.
But I also felt like I didn't get a lot of data on this because I was being blocked out. And that happens occasionally. This is one of the very few targets where I just could not, I felt like I was beating my head against the wall, trying to get data out of these numbers, because I was being blocked. So
nice.
I could always go back in. We could try it again with the front loaded target here. But
did you ever, and this is for you, Jessica, did you ever see the movie Push?
I don't think so.
Watch it. You of all people, it is a movie with I'm not going to tell you who's in it. Watch this movie. In fact, it was from, let me look it up really fast.
Okay. I'm writing it down.
Totally, and I'll tell you, movie 2009. Okay. 2009. Watch it. I think you can find it anywhere. It's on Amazon. It's on Netflix. But the reason is because there is something in it. It's about a lot of people with abilities, and there's people with remote viewers, as it basically is super, if paranormal, some superhero people, but a lot of it was mental abilities. And they countered remote viewers with blockers. People's who dedicated job was, if you didn't want to be tracked by remote viewers, you hired a blocker to be with you, and they would shield you or a small area from whoever, and so like when somebody's trying to find, it's like you can't see them, something stopping, they've got somebody. So if you get a chance, watch it. I think you'll be intrigued by it. So it would not surprise me, and I don't think it surprised you either, that if the United States government or whoever wanted to stop people from looking in any capacity too closely at Antarctica, that is one of the places that you would make sure that there were people down there that their job, that's all they do, is do that. And if you had to run them, I would, if it was me, again, if I worked for an agency, I would run them in shifts, overlapping tandem shifts to make sure that nobody got too curious. So intriguing. Love it.
Yeah. It happens sometimes. And so it can be really dangerous when I get blind targets. Okay. And that's why I don't take targets from anyone. People who give me targets, they have to be trained in remote viewing in some form. The types of remote viewing that I do. Okay. Because I've been noticing a lot of people on YouTube are like, I'm a remote viewer and I've remote viewed this. They're not really remote viewing. Right. Not by my terms. Okay. As far as the training goes. But the people who have trained with me and the person who taught me, I do take targets from them. A lot of them, I don't even know what my targets are. Okay, I never find out what they are in the end. I'm not supposed to know with a lot of them, but it's very dangerous, and you have to trust that these targets are not going to get you in trouble. They're not going to take you somewhere, send you somewhere you're not supposed to be, and so that's why. And so I knew that going, Antarctica, Area 51, the moon, like all that kind of stuff is very dangerous. So you gotta be very cautious before you do stuff like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, Groom Lake, that's a tricky one because everyone knows it's a secret base, and everyone wants to, of course, because it's the mystery. It's like, oh, what's in there? It's like, it's a secret. You don't get to go in there. But since it's in the middle of the country, it's the most secret public place there is, and everybody knows the little things, although, they've done a really wonderful job at keeping the information locked in there.
Well, the thing about me doing a lot of these targets too is that I accidentally stumble upon a lot of underground facilities.
Sure.
Especially at our national parks. And I don't mean to, but it just when I'm there scanning the place and I'm doing these viewings, especially when it comes to cryptid sightings, Bigfoot sightings, dogman sightings, and things like that, there's usually an underground facility right there underneath where these sightings are.
Yeah. One more thing before John steps in. You mentioned blue. You mentioned blue a couple times. If you get a chance, you can Google the coastline of Antarctica or Antarctic ice. There are sections of Antarctic ice that are the size of cities that are just these layers and layers of the most amazing blue ice you have ever seen in your life. And it's just gorgeous. And when you see the scope of them, I could probably send you a couple pictures, but you'll see them when, because you only get scope when you see penguins next to them. It's like, you're looking at stuff bigger, single chunks the size of city blocks, and you're going, wow, the scope of this place is just freaking massive. And people say, well, 5,000 people is a lot. It's like, not for a country the size of Australia, not for a landmass, at least, even if you believe the globe that big, 5,000 people, that's nothing. It's a tiny scope of a town.
Damn.
So.
Wow. Well, I have a question, Mark. Okay,
yes.
Because I have lived my whole life thinking the Earth is a globe. Okay, everybody does. Okay, yeah. So if the world is flat, and I think, and like I said, I think we could live in a computer simulation for all I know. Okay, so I am so 100% open to everything. Is that or is there land beyond the ice wall? That's my question.
Well, that's just it. And I want let me probe into this really quickly
Okay.
because you've mentioned simulation now a couple times.
Yeah.
And I'm curious why you would say that, because I come from the computer world. I come from the tech world. I played video games for a living. I produce video games for a living. I know what we're trying to do. You know, the Matrix for me, it's like, oh yeah, we absolutely want to do that. It's probably not going to happen because of health reasons. You know, you're not going to allow people to jack into their brain. You know, it's just one of those things. However, when it comes to, I'll mention this one thing, and you'll get this. Look this up if you get a chance. If you probably heard of it in passing, of the double slit experiment. It is something in the physics world which we thought was only physical for a long time, which was the double slit experiment is when you put in we'll just use the marble idea. So you take a steel plate and you put a slit in the middle of it and you fire marbles through it. It's like, then you see the target on the back wall. It's like, all right, well, you know what's going to happen there, right?
Mhm.
You know, it's going to just go through that slit and the pattern on the wall is going to be that slit. If you put two slits in and fire the marbles, you get two slits. However, if you use water on the two slits, what happens is it creates interference patterns on the other side, and they interfere with each other and create tons and tons of different slits. And it's like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. What does it mean? Well, it doesn't really mean anything. What happened was, when science got further along, they had the ability to do it with particle beams, shooting single electrons. Why does science do anything? Who knows? It's like, why? Let's shoot electrons to the slit. Why? Who knows what they do, why they do it. But they were doing this, right? And they were going, oh yeah, it's going through the slits just fine. Here's where it gets weird. They turn the cameras off, but someone forgot to turn the electron gun off. And when they look back at the target, it's spreading like a wave. You probably heard it. You'll run into this. It's like particle versus wave. And it's like, wait a minute. Wait. And then it's like, okay, wait, look at it again. And as they're looking at it, it changes back into the single path. And you're going, wait a minute. So get the camera. We're not going to look and make sure the camera's on. When the camera's on, it reacts like it's being watched. When the camera's off, it's reacting like it's a probability, meaning it's acting like a wave. So it's like, so the observer just watching it means that it's changing. And you're thinking, okay, what's that got to do with anything? What that got to do with anything is that when we got into the computer world and we started building, in my world, and we started building simulations, we were doing this without knowing it. Meaning, if you've ever played a video game, and I know girls don't play video games, I get it.
My son's playing them right now, right behind the camera.
Perfect. Does he play like Fortnite and GTA and Minecraft and all that crap?
He just got a PS5 from Santa. Yes,
Perfect.
he does. Now he does.
This is where your mind's going to bend a little bit, right? So you're looking in a video game, and you look off in the distance, you see a mountain or whatever, a building. When you're looking at it, is there anyone on the other side of that building? No. Why would there? We're not going to draw it. There's no one there watching it. There's no observer to the other side of that building. Furthermore, as you're driving forward, you're only seeing, it's called flashlight graphics. What you see in front of you is the only thing we're drawing. It's the only thing that's going to be illuminated to you. What's behind you isn't even there anymore. It's not there. It's an illusion. So the question is, and then this is where it comes full circle. The question is, if we're doing this in video games, right? We're building, basically, the argument, you've heard this when you're growing up. If the tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, we didn't know, right? I mean, that question was asked to me in the 70s, right? We now know the answer to that question, which is, well, no, because there's no tree. There's no one there to watch the tree. Why would there be a tree at all? The tree hasn't been drawn yet. The tree's not even built. The tree doesn't show up until you're there, right? So the question is, if that's happening in the video game world, why are we seeing it here?
Right.
Why is it happening in our world? And again, the science nerds still they don't get it. It's like, you don't understand. This thing just screams simulation. Sorry, one more movie for you. I know you haven't seen it. This will totally get it. It's based on a 1967 book called Simulacron 3. You don't have to write that down, which was turned into a German movie in the 1970s called World on a Wire. And then the Americans did it in the 90s, and it's called The 13th Floor. Watch it. I won't give you any context to it. Watch it. You'll understand, which is, it is, sorry, to your point, are we living in a simulation? There are things out there that, trust me, I'm an authority on this, scream simulation. Absolutely scream simulation. I'm sorry, one more thing. I know that John's like, he's going, well, the show's got off the rails.
No,
I
no,
love this.
no, Mark, stop. I'm enjoying the
good.
heck out of this.
Good. I got one more for
Me
you.
too.
You'll like
Okay.
it. Which
Thank
is,
you.
look up something. There's a wiki entry on this, and scientists hate bringing it up. It's like, look, no, I'm going to bring up the stuff. Science discovers stuff, and then they're like regretting it. You know, like the 100th monkey effect and crap like that. It's like, no, that's a myth. It's like, no. You found it. We didn't make it up. You found it, and now you're trying to like, oh, we didn't find it. I think it happens in the military all the time. They probably have werewolves, you know, for all we know.
They do. I talk about it on my show. Tune into the Cryptid Huntress on YouTube. You'll hear about it.
Wouldn't surprise me. And we should talk about crypto zoology before we get off, or off air if we have to. So there's a thing you can look up on Wiki called neuroscience and free will. It's one of those wonderful little science experiments. I remember watching a TV special on it at least 15 years ago. So they hook up, tape electrodes to somebody's head like they always do. And they put you in front of a computer, and it's a simple test, right? And they're saying, okay, pick a number on the screen between 1 and 10, right? And you're just going to hit the keyboard between 1 and 10. And note, they added a little caveat to it because they noticed an anomaly in the machine. They said, because they're going to measure brain waves, and they're going to say, okay, note how long it took you between the time you pick the number and the time you hit the key, right? Normally it was instantaneous. It's like, okay, number 1 and 10, 4, click, right? Nothing, fraction of a second, if not a second. Now, the computer wasn't sophisticated enough, even to this day, maybe the military does, we don't, can't tell you what number you picked, but it could tell that you chose a number 8 seconds before you hit the key. That's a problem because, as you know, it only took me less than a second to make the decision, which meant that you were going to choose the number before you chose the number. The computer, the simulation, knew you were already going to do it. Now, the reason why science is backing way away from this one is because that brings up a word that they hate called predestination, which means it may not only be that you're in a simulation, but it may not even be real time, meaning you may be, for lack of a better word, in a simulated book or simulated movie where the path has already been chosen for you and you already chose it, which goes into the Matrix movies, the quote that just glosses over, everyone misses it, which was, if you remember the Matrix movies, when Neo is talking to the Oracle on the park bench and he goes, I can't make that choice. She goes, you've already made the choice. You're just here to understand why you made it. Right? Meaning the path was already laid out for him. And if you watch the movie and you watch it close, the hero's journey was already set for him, and he was dictating the entire thing while he was doing it. So predestination is that thing. If you get a chance, look at it. They don't know how to describe it. It's like, look, if the computer already can tell before you even, the question is asked to you, the computer can already tell your mind has committed to making the decision, then that means either the computer knows time travel and it's looking 8 seconds in the past, or for some reason there's a glitch in how our brain patterns work, which we can detect but don't know how to do anything. Sorry, I go off on tangents.
Please don't apologize. This is one of the most interesting conversations I've had in a long time.
All right. Well, before we
some really interesting conversations. Actually, my shows that I do on Wednesdays and Mondays are called A Glitch in the Matrix.
Oh, nice. That's nice.
Yes.
I believe in it all the time. I joke with people. I say that it wouldn't surprise me if it was part of the Mandela effect. And they say, in the Mandela effect, oh, it's really, because I always heard it was the Mandela effect. Get it? Because that's the joke. It's not the Mandela effect. And then I'll throw it in a little later. So while we're on the subject of the Mandela effect, and they'll be like, wait, did you just say Mandela? I go, did I? By the way, I'm a huge believer in the Mandela effect, or whatever you want to call it, for really just one reason, which is, and I promise I'll stop when we go back to Antarctica, which is the James Bond girl. the little girl in pigtails, which was, if you remember the James Bond movies, there was a girl in it. Jaws, the big villain in the 70s with the metal teeth. For instead of normal teeth, he had metal teeth. That was his hook. Plus, he was big and strong. He runs into a girl accidentally, where he's like, it's this little girl, just this innocent Swedish girl with blonde with pigtails, and she's got braces. And she smiles at him, and they have this connection because she's got metal in her mouth. He's got metal in her mouth. I was like, oh, that's cute. And they end up being boyfriend, girlfriend for the rest of the show. The episode was called Moonraker. That was the name of the show. And it's like, oh, yeah, I want to look that up. It's a funny little thing. Problem is, when you go into it now and you watch it, she doesn't have braces anymore.
Well, sure she did. Mark, stop. She certainly did. I remember that.
Yes, she absolutely. That's the whole point of the plot, which is, it's like he wouldn't have even given her the time of day if she didn't have braces. It was a nice, tender moment, and that's why they became a couple for the movie. And you're like, wait, where are her freaking braces? They're gone. They're absolutely freaking gone. And I think that when it comes to the Mandela effect, there's certain things. I mean, most of it is pretty good. You know, they've been pretty slick with it. How certain things are omitted. But that one, it's like, oh, really? Because that's a plot point in the script, and it's not a small one either. And you let it sit there to drive people nuts. So nice one. Anyway, sorry. What are we talking about with Antarctica? It's a weird place. I am sorry you were blocked. By the way, and the continent thing. No wonder you were having problems, because you were looking at it. You were probably trying to think of it as a continent, like, where all the edges were defined, like Australia, right? But if it's wrapped around everywhere,
I guess so.
It would be overwhelming, because because again, it is a continent technically. I'm sorry. One more thing to answer your question as far as what's outside of it.
Beyond the ice wall.
Well, yeah, beyond Antarctica itself.
Yeah.
Beyond the barrier, it's really only one of two things, which is it's either more there's two schools of thought. There's people that think there's more continents like ours. They're just sitting outside there that are sealed off from us, that we can't get there and they can't get here for what I think. However, then comes the question. It's like, oh, all the spaceships and stuff. Can the spaceships get out, or can they travel in and out? I'm going, man, if it was me, I'd seal this place in, because you don't want us hitching a ride on one of those things, because God knows we're not exactly. And again, the movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still from the 1950s, which was the Galactic Federation comes in and says, you're not doing space travel because you're horrible. And we don't want what's happening down here going out there. This isn't Star Trek where, it's the SS Utopia. No. You guys are awful. It's really, really bad. The other one would be what I believe that we are. And that this is a school. This is perspective, meaning, sorry, I don't want to drag the show out too much, but I let me get this out there, which is because people say, what at this point, the meaning of life type deal. And that is, if this world is 99.9% conflict, which I think everyone could agree is, the moments of contentment here are so small. It doesn't matter how beautiful, how powerful, how rich, how talented you are. You can always complain about something. Everybody does. The rich want more money. The power want more powerful. The beautiful, they're locked into a mirror forever. And the talented think they're frauds. And really, and most of the time, when you talk to anybody that's tied to any of the media, I mean, it comes down to timing more than anything. It's not just who you know, but when it happened. You catch a break at the right time, great, you're famous. You miss your window, it's over. It doesn't matter how talented you are. Well, if people, the most people that we envy on a regular basis, if they're the most enviable people in the world, if they're worrying as much as the next person, then what's outside of this world? I believe it's 99.9% unlimited, meaning, because I don't think anything's perfect, nor do I think anything's forever. I'll throw one more thing at you. I know that John knows this one because I've talked about it on various things, which is the genie. It's the genie machine, which is you've thought of it, I'm sure, at one point or another. Genie, yeah, you got a lamp, you rub it, genie comes out. Hey, 3 wishes. But you're smart, so one of your wishes is Jessica. Do you get 3 wishes?
Oh, I want all sorts of things.
No. Think clever. You can wish for anything,
For
including
more wishes. More wishes?
boom, more wishes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is
More wishes.
grade school logic. Everybody knows it's like, I'll just wish for a million wishes. Nobody makes it to a million wishes, but whatever.
Right.
So you wish for exactly. You have a wish list. You
Yeah.
crank it up, right? You wish for you're a rock star. You're a president. You're a princess. You're an ice skater. I'm just picking female things. You date everyone you wanted to date. You have affairs with everyone you wanted to have an affair with. You live on a desert island. You own a desert island. You could do anything you want, right? You can climb a mountain. Don't even have to wear anything but a short sleeve shirt. You're a superhero. You do all these things. Well, where does it end, right? Eventually, you run out of ideas. I believe the universe runs partially on novelty, which is what's new. It's what we say to everyone. What's new? I mean, come on. During the pandemic, people were going insane because they were going through everything that was on Netflix. I mean, they were running out of things to watch. I was watching. It's like, really? What's happening in Korean television nowadays? Right? That sort of stuff. Well, imagine this. You run, let's say you went through 10,000 wishes. Ballpark it. What do you do then? Right? You've lived thousands of years. Right? What do you do? So you go to the genie. The genie's like looking at his watch, going, "You're not going to make it." And he's like, "What?" You ask the genie, "What can I do? What can you?" He goes, "Well, I got a place for you. Limited lifespan, one way in, a million ways to die." He goes, "You're going to hate it. It's going to be awful. It's going to be just nothing but it's 99.9% suffering. Trust me on this." And he's like, "Why would I want to go there?" Because when you go there, when you come back, you're going to appreciate like this, like it's brand new, and you can just start the whole thing over again. It's going to be a blast. And it's like, well, there's a catch, right? Of course there's a catch. I wouldn't even offer to you if it wasn't a catch. You're going to do it? It's like, do I have to just say it before I know the catch is? Yep. What's the catch? The catch is you're not even going to remember this conversation. And he snaps his fingers. Here we are. And this is what we have to do. And knowing this, you can't end it because again, and I get it. I understand it. This is what I believe in. It's not necessarily reincarnation. It's something else. It's I understand that you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't live the life that you're sitting in right now, know the previous existence, and have this have any meaning whatsoever. If that was the case, people would be jumping off the bridge at the first sign of trouble. It's like, I got to be on my report card. That's it. They'd be done. So, with some people anyway, the rest, who knows? So anyway, that's my long-winded off-road thing, and completely derailed the show. And now John's like, I'm never having him back on again.
No, it was fantastic because I brought up the simulation stuff in regard to even, the ice wall. It's all my fault. I take the blame. 100%.
No, I mean, why wouldn't
it's fascinating.
It kills me that more people, again, it's easier for me because I come from the tech world. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to that. Again, playing games for a living, that was not easy. But people, you don't forget, I mean, like this year, for example, The Matrix was 25 years old, the Matrix movie. Groundbreaking movie, right? And it was based on, the computer world geeks have been writing about this since the 1960s. People still don't get it. And I think that's deliberate. I think it's part of the system, which is you're not supposed to understand it. That's part of the gem of this place is it's every layers and layers and layers of deception and illusion and simulation. And if we didn't, then this place would fall apart, which again, not to wax biblical, but why the Tower of Babel was such a wonderful story for me, which was the early versions of this place. This place is always apparently in a work in progress. The story of Babel was, hey, I'm going to create a perfect civilization. No, one language, everybody's great, and they're high tech. And all this was the first thing they do. They invent flying cars, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to build a bridge to the top of the dome. Yeah, we're going to go see God, see what he's like. And that's the end of the story because God's like, no, that this is not going to work at all. And then it's like, all right, different languages. And that was the first revision of, if you believe, that story. I love that story because it makes sense, which was, we start out big and then, you make things more and more diverse. I think at one point, if you look at the map, the AE map, let's go back to Antarctica really fast. You notice that the tip of South America is really close to Antarctica, right? It's really close. I think the whole thing was connected at one point. and that it was, in fact, I think this because of the book. I'm going to use a non-canonized book of the Bible called Jasher, which was basically part of the story of Enoch, right? And there was I think it was the first part of Jasher. If I don't want to name which chapter, I think it was 3, but whatever, where Jasher was leaving, right? He was supposedly going to leave the earth. God said, all right, you got to leave. And he walked off the earth. And he walked to, and he was going, no one should follow me. And of course, people were following him, big throngs of people. It's like, don't go, because he was a rock star. So he's walking and walking, and he gets to a part. You can look it up if you get a chance, where he gets to a place of ice and snow and more ice and more snow. And they were really good about being redundant about that. It's like, well, there's only one place I know of that's permanent ice and snow. I think he walked off the tip of South America, went to Antarctica, and of course apparently he went to a place and then was big light show and left, and the surviving followers had to turn back. But it would not surprise me at all if this place has been in a constant state of revision, which leads into mud floods and ancient civilizations and crap like that. So
yeah, well, Dr. John and I have talked about the mud flood. We did a show together on it.
Yeah,
I removed it, I think.
It would.
Yeah, and in fact, I just posted another show on the mud flood. It's fascinating. It's like, what is going on here? Because it can't happen. But
it can't. But can it? I mean, look, the saying is there's nothing new under the sun, right? And the movie, again, I'll throw in one more movie reference for you there, Jessica. Dark City. If you've never seen it, it came out just before The Matrix. In fact, coincidentally, because The Matrix was low budget and they were shot in the same country, they used some of the same sets from Dark City in The Matrix. But the concept is there was a city of people that a higher race of beings would come in at night and alter their memories as a whole and change the city at night, and people would wake up in a different part of the city with different memories. Brilliant movie. Well,
Man.
Who's to say? And people think, terraforming, all the old civilizations, Machu Picchu, Puma Punku, the Bosnian pyramids, the real pyramids, whatever, that they were all, so many years apart, and you couldn't make changes on the fly to any civilization while it was still working. Yeah, you could.
However, yes.
As long as tech, as the tech was low enough, as long as telegraph was really limited, the internet definitely wasn't up, radio and television wasn't up. Yes, you could make some last minute changes. You bet you could. You could revamp a city and the population in it. Who's gonna know? And moreover, who's gonna tell who? If you make sure the general population, their memory is shot, or you just remove the people altogether and replace them with somebody else, it's going to be fine. The newspapers aren't going to reflect it, and how are they going to talk about it anyway? I'll throw one more in at you. One of the greatest UFO sightings of all time, in fact, my favorite ever, and there's a wiki page dedicated to it. In fact, why people don't talk about it, other than me, I don't know, is called the 1561 Nuremberg event.
Oh, my God. Oh, now you're talking to a guy that wants to talk about 1561. Yes.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Again, on a beautiful April sky in Nuremberg, Germany in 1561, two what essentially were flying aircraft carriers came in and just started hammering on each other with fighters over the city. I think it was very deliberate. I think it was a statement for whatever reason, and they were up there for a full hour. Now, there was no photography back in 1561, but there were sketch artists, and they sketched the whole thing out for the newspaper. I mean, an hour's a long time. You can finish your toast and schnitzengluben, and you can go straight to the freaking sketchboard. And it's like, oh yeah, what's happening? And it's beautiful. You can look it up. The illustration is gorgeous. There isn't a cloud in the sky. And people say, oh, sundogs and blah, blah, blah. But because in 1561 there was no science fiction reference, nowadays it's like you can just pick, okay, whatever ship shows up in the sky, people are going to make a comparison to some movie or television show. That's the only drawback of a ship showing up right now. It's like, oh, look, it's from Battlestar Galactica, right? Or look, it's from the Day of the Earth. Oh, it looks kind of Star Warsy, whatever. So back then they thought it was a religious event. They did not know what to make of it. And so, and it wasn't the only city that it happened to, but it was definitely the most prominent. What struck me more than anything about it, and even Ancient Aliens didn't talk about the second part, which was after that hour, a third faction shows up with no fighters, a giant black angular ship with no windows and no nothing, pulls up between the two of them and just sits there. And those guys scatter. They're like, oh no, we're not having any of this. And they take off, right? Then eventually that sharp angular ship, and you'll see it in the drawing, just kind of leaves. Who the hell were those guys? Right? And the reason why I think Ancient Aliens didn't bring it up is like freaking, they only tell you so much, right? Which was, it raises too many questions. It puts too much legitimacy on the power structure and the hierarchy, which was, okay, you know who these guys were. You know, these were rival factions. Who were these guys? Who was the black faction, right? Were they the UN? Were they the cops? Were they some sort of military? And moreover, what was the response time on that? I think they showed up over that city because they found a dead spot in the coverage, which was an hour. It's like, look, I could fire a gun out this window right now, and there's going to be cops here in under 10 minutes. I guarantee it. Het. But these guys were doing a full-blown military engagement for an hour, and nobody showed up. It's like, again, the hierarchy. Who is everybody? What's it raises so many cool questions. I just love it. Sorry, I'm rambling. What else do you want to talk about?
While you were talking about that, my son's plug came out of his stereo, his headphones, and it sounded like gunfire in here. So it's kind of going along. It's just background noise to narrate the sky fight. Okay, that's what that was. Star Wars.
Nice.
Sorry, y'all.
But yet, the skeptics still say, by the way, that it was sundogs. Oh, it was nothing but sundogs. It's like, did you see the sketch? It's not even. It's not even. It's gorgeous. It's in full color, and it's meticulously drawn. It's like, yeah, that's not sundogs, right? I know what sundogs look like, and that's not it. No. And plus, it was April. Sundogs usually show up during really nice, crisp, clear, frozen scenarios. Usually in the mountains, there's snow on the ground. This wasn't that, and it was over a full-blown city. No.
Yeah, I've seen some UFOs myself. I've seen a bunch of them, especially out in the field when we're doing our Bigfoot research. Oftentimes we have UFOs that show up in the field. So, yeah,
and I believe. I'm sorry. The flat Earth take on that is that does it, because I used to watch UFOs. If you've never had a chance, if you have the means, go on Amazon, buy a pair of you can get American now cheap night vision binoculars for night vision viewers for wildlife in like a 5x power. And just stare at the sky. I was told this years ago, and somebody said, it was some British guy, in silhouette. He's like, "You want to see some weird stuff?" He goes, and it was the end of the interview, and he goes, "Get night vision and start looking up." I'm going, "Ooh, that sounds fun." So I got some night vision, and I, was living in Colorado, beautiful, clear sky, high altitude, and I was looking at the sky, and I'm going, that's boring. It's like, there's a lot of satellites, right? I'm going, the sky's crawling with stuff. When you look at it, I'm going, yeah, whatever. And then I watching I was going to quit. And on my second night, I was going, satellites are flying by, and then one of them just slows down and stops. I go, what are you doing up there? And then all of a sudden, it flashes, and it makes a right-hand bank, and it goes ballistic in a very, very quickly. And I'm going, that's not what they're supposed to do. What am I looking at? Exactly. And the sky's just freaking crawling with stuff. Do I think they're us? The Americans would love to take credit for it. No, I do not. I do not. I mean, sure, the Americans could take credit for some stuff, but full well that these things have been around a long, long time. Long time. And, it's as much as I appreciate the hype around Roswell, which I do think was fun. The whole Roswell thing. UFO stories predate America as a country so far back. But again, love America for putting their pin in flags and things. It's like, oh yeah, they'll do a wink. It's like, oh no, it's probably not us. It's like, oh, I see what you did there. Clever. Anyway.
Well, they say there are UFO bases in Antarctica. Just to bring it full circle.
Sure.
Okay, just to bring it full circle for Dr. John.
There you go. UFO bases in Antarctica, you bet. And again, you guys can look up Operation High Jump in 1946, right after we took over, the surrender of Japan in Tokyo. They sent a full-blown carrier group with 5,000 infantry to Antarctica. Why? Oh, for research purposes. Really, it seems kind of extreme for research purposes for Antarctica, the snow and World War II, guys want to go home. It's like, what are we doing with all these guys? And the speculation is rampant on what happened down there, that they were beaten back, that there was an older civilization or a UFO tech civilization that squared off with them for a little while, and the U.S. went back with their tail between their legs. It's like, okay, we're not going back for a while. And then eventually they had to cut a deal to where it's like, all right, we're not going to do any more military stuff. And then, now the military's down there, but not in any capacity. We're very, very, small. Do I think my favorite story from that was that the Nazis, because for those who don't know, the Nazis were the only people that were down in Antarctica during World War II, during the war. Which makes sense because I'm sorry, we can say Nazis. That's fine. It's not, you're not going to get flagged.
I said schmazzies.
Well,
you can't hear. On my channel, I say schmazzi.
Middle ground, the Germans. The Germans were down there because Indiana Jones wasn't just a movie. They were a group that felt that if anything could help the war, they would. And why wouldn't you? Right? It's like, and they understood it. They believe in the paranormal. The Vrills and all those guys. They understood. It's like, look, if Harry Potter's wand is somewhere and it'll help us, go get it. If the Ring of Power for the Lord of the Ring, get that. What Ark of the Covenant? You bet. Go after that. Right? Why wouldn't you take a chance? Right? So if Antarctica was one of their bases and they were down there, the rumor is, and I like it because it sounds kind of fun, which is it's kind, they were allowed asylum, whoever was down there, but they couldn't come back. Kind of like if you remember high school dances. I don't know what John remembers back in the day. Dance, you couldn't come back into the gym. You're not going to go drinking in the parking lot. They're not letting you back in, right? If you're in, you're in, right? You get your stamp. You're not coming. You're not going back and forth. And so with the Germans, it was like, no, you've already messed up things enough. If you leave here, if you go with us, you get asylum. That's fine. You can hang out. All debts forgiven for now, and but you can't come back because, well, we know what you do. So there you go.
Okay.
John, what else can I do for you?
Interesting. Mark, very interesting. Jessica, very interesting. This has been a lot of fun. And I'm going to ask, like I sometimes do, can the three of us get together and do this again sometime in the next couple of months?
So. Nope. Yeah.
No?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, Jessica, will you come back and join us?
I'd love to.
I can't say no to you, John, anyway, because you and I may be working together in 25 for things.
Well, okay, I'm not going to say we will be, because I am so excited. Am I okay to tell about it?
Sure. Talk about it.
Well, in 2025, Dr. John Stamey is the chair of the Flat Earth Conference, and it's going to be in Georgia. And one of the keynote speakers, is other than Mark Sargent, is going to be Jessica Jones, because Jessica's so exciting.
Oh my gosh!
Wait, did you already tell Jessica?
Yes,
okay.
We have talked about it. We have, and but I'm no expert on flat Earth though. That's Mark. This is all Mark.
That's
okay,
right.
It's all Mark.
You got
but I do know about other topics.
That's right. Again,
right. But the whole point is, the reason we're there, is to learn from each other.
Sure.
And Mark, do you like that idea?
Yes.
For me, with a doctorate in computer science and technology education and 3 master's degrees, the only thing that I live for is to learn. That is all that I live for. In fact, I was talking with an old friend from Clemson University, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm running paranormal conferences, and I live to learn." He said, "You've always been about that. We always used to laugh at you, but you wanted to learn what is going on." I said, "Yeah, I do." So even my friends that have known me forever realize that I just want to learn, And that's the whole purpose of my life. So we're going to learn a ton, and Jessica's going to teach us a lot. Mark's going to teach us a lot. I might even teach everybody a thing or two. We're going to have fun. The whole purpose of Flat Earth 2025 is to have fun
There you go.
and learn and experience others' ideas. And Mark, do you like that idea?
I do. I was
That's all.
thinking of a smart ass answer, and I don't have one right off the top of my head.
No, but that's why we're there. It's to learn.
It should be a blast. I'm going to encourage a lot of people. Once we get everything up and running, I will be promoting the hell out of this, and looking forward to it.
I mean, this is going to be a whole new chapter in Flat Earthism because of how we're going to do it, and I think it's going to be fun, and I hope everybody loves it. And I'm already talking to lots of people, and they're liking the idea. Great. So anyway, that's a little bit of a preview of what's coming on. I'm going to have the two of you back in a couple of months. This has been one of the most enjoyable Scarycasts that I have ever moderated, and it got to where I didn't even have to moderate it for the last.
You didn't.
20. It was so much fun. And so, first of all, we've got it. Ladies first. I want to thank you, Jessica Jones, for being here. You were wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. This is always fun. So I'm usually talking about Bigfoot and Dogmen and Mothman and anything that lurks in the dark in the woods that I'm chasing after on the weekends. So this is refreshing and fun, and I appreciate it. It was nice meeting you, Mark. Thank you for being here.
Nice.
And Mark Sargent.
Yes.
As usual, you are a world-class participant in this conversation, and you are, every time, you do not fail to produce good topics and good results. So from the bottom of our hearts here, Scarycast, from my attorney who's our partner in this and everything, we want to thank you for being here and making this conversation just so much fun that we could learn, because the only reason I believe we are here is to learn. So thank you, Mark Sargent.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, good. Well, now we'll be back. we got a lot more stuff to do here on Christmas/New Year's week, and we've got a lot of great things. So I want to say again, thank you, Jessica Jones. Thank you, Mark Sargent. We were glad you were here. We will see you back soon, and thanks a lot. And this is Dr. John saying good night, everybody, and we'll see you back on there's only one Scarycast. We'll see you. Bye-bye.